the IRS doesn't matter, right? If the spouse that works suddenly runs off and doesn't pay their taxes, well, if you filed jointly, the spouse that didn't work and maybe doesn't have any income is still 100% responsible for the taxes on that tax return. Today, we are going to compare different filing statuses for your taxes. So, one very easy way to figure out overall what your filing status is that it goes by what you are on the last day of the year. So, for example, if you are single on the last day of the tax year, you can file single. Similarly, if you got married on December 31st, you know what you can file as? Married, right? So it really depends on what your marital status is on the very last day of the calendar year. All people are calendar based. You only have January through December. There's no fiscal year for like normal people or for any people, right? That's something that corporations and other entities can pick. But people, December 31st, what you are is going to dictate how you're going to file. There's always exceptions to these things, right? It's not a hard and fast rule. You do have like a little bit of a choice to make. So if you're single and you have no kids and you're, out there enjoying life, you're going to file as single. That's kind of all you really have to pick from. Now, if you're married, this is where the decision comes in. You have two ways of filing. Married file joint, married file separate. Does it come out exactly the same? No, it actually, and a good CPA will tell you when it is more financially beneficial to file one way or the other. Tax software is pretty cool. It can tell you, and it can even quantify. This is how much you're saving by filing jointly or by filing separately. Now, there are some things to understand if you're going to file jointly. Everything kind of gets smushed together, right? What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. What's ours is also mine and yours. When you file jointly, you are both 100% responsible for the taxes, which makes it sound like maybe that's 200%. Not exactly. What it means by saying you're both 100% responsible for the taxes is that if one of you is bringing in a large amount of income, maybe only one of the spouses works and the other doesn't, the IRS doesn't matter, right? If the spouse that works suddenly runs off and doesn't pay their taxes, well, if you file jointly, the spouse that didn't work and maybe doesn't have any income is still 100% responsible for the taxes on that tax return. Now, this can take us down a path that is for another video of innocent spouse and things like that, but just high level, 100% responsible. Each of you is 100% responsible for 100% of the taxes. So keep that in mind. Now, if you're filing separately, there are a couple kind of quirky things that pop up when you file separately. So the biggest one is taking deductions. If one of you is going to itemize, say one of you is like, oh, well, the house is in my name, the mortgage comes to me, I paid the property taxes, we're going to itemize, you both have to itemize. So you could have the situation when you're filing separately that one of you has lots of deductions and the other has no deduction. If it's a situation where you can do it, you might want to look at, like I said, CPAs who are sophisticated. Our software will tell us, yeah, you're more financially well off with your taxes to file jointly versus file separate. Now, that 100% responsible for taxes does get eliminated when you file separately. So if you're maybe each like very successful, I see this sometimes with like two spouses who are both attorneys at big law firms, or a law firm and a doctor, or something like that, where there's two spouses that make a lot of money. Sometimes it does work out better that each one is responsible for their own taxes, right? Instead of saying, well, one of us is, fleeing the country and leave the other one with all the taxes. You're each responsible for your own taxes. So that's kind of cool. Now, I will say sometimes there are non-financial reasons, or let me rephrase, sometimes there are non-tax reasons that folks are going to file separately when they're married. The number one reason that ends up being is for student loan repayment, right? If you went to an expensive graduate school, like maybe you went to law school, maybe you went to medical school, if you're doing some kind of loan repayment plan, a lot of times I see folks that will file separately because of those student loan repayments. So that is kind of a non-tax. It's still financial. It still impacts the family's overall finances, but that's not something that's going to be picked up by my tax software, right? My tax software can't do that. That's a different kind of financial planning. The other thing is, if you're maybe just not wanting to be responsible for your spouse's taxes, right? Each spouse is responsible 100% for the taxes by filing separately. I've had it happen, discussions where maybe one spouse is not real sure about the source of income, where that other spouse is making their money or how they're making their money. Listen, this is Florida, okay? It's a sunny place for shady people. We don't judge, but if you don't want to be responsible for your spouse's taxes because you don't know how clean their money is, you have that option, right? You both file separately. You don't put yourself in an awkward situation down the line. But it is something that isn't always the easiest decision to make, whether you should file jointly or file separately. Work with a CPA to figure that out and help you make that decision. Now, the last one we want to talk about is head of household. Okay, this is a special one. This is basically, think single parent, right? There are some qualifications to file as head of household, and it's going to be, generally speaking, better tax rates, better meaning lower tax rates than single. So it's trying to kind of help out those folks that are taking care of family on their own. So to qualify for head of household, because this is a pretty popular question that we get, we'll just walk through it. To qualify, you have to be unmarried, right? So you're looking at generally like, would I pick single or would I pick head of household? If you're married, you cannot be head of household. So this is unmarried, or you're considered unmarried, right? You'd have to be divorced or single. There is a caveat to that, actually. If you're not living with your spouse, it's like a special rule. So that can go into more detail depending on your specific situation. So unmarried, you're also paying for more than half of the upkeep of a home, right? So if I moved back in with my parents, I took my kid and moved back into their house, well, this might not qualify for you then. So more than half, keeping up the cost of a house, things like mortgage, rent, utility, food, that kind of stuff is keeping up a home. And then you have to have somebody a qualified person, you have to have that person living with you. Most of the time we're thinking about like a child, right? So it's usually very frequently a single parent who's upkeeping a residency with one or more kids. Those are your qualifying person. But it doesn't have to be your kid, right? It could be a sibling, it could potentially be a parent. You have to go through the dependency rule and you have to make sure that they qualify, which again, qualified CPAs can do this for you. We can walk you through all the rules, help you with the math, make sure that you're qualifying. And what happens here, you get a different standard deduction, you get lower tax rate, and it does increase some of the other credits like earned income credit, things like that. So government trying to help you out a little bit on the tax side if you are a single parent or a single caregiver of another family member. But that's it. So in a nutshell, what are you at the last day of the year, and then what are the extenuating circumstances beyond that? A knowledgeable CPA can help walk you through what's the best way to file for you. And if you have any questions about it, always give us a call, contact us, drop a comment, and we'll see you next time.